we're doing these 9 weeks on what we know as the Orange Strategy. And Orange is this deal that we just implemented last September. We're following hundreds of other churches and thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of other followers of Jesus across our country, maybe a few even around the world, that have taken up this Orange Strategy. And what we're doing is we're following a strategy to kind of put as much as we can into the youth. And we know, again, what I've been saying through the first parts of this series is that it's just not for the youth. All the things that we're looking at doing so the first 3 weeks was for the 0 through 4 years of age. There's a strategy that we're looking. We're just not letting kind of Jesus happen. We're wanting to follow a strategy so that over and over again we can fill these and serve these littlest ones and the preciousness of their souls with some of the things that God would have them to realize. And then last week we started, and this week we'll continue, and we'll finish it next week, again 3 weeks, with our kindergartners through the 5th graders, kind of the 5-year-olds to the 12-year-olds. And there's a strategy that we're wanting to implement into the life. So over and over again, over the years that they have from that 5 to 12, we're doing this strategy. And then from kind of 13 through 18, sort of kind of 6th grade through graduated from high school, there's this strategy that we want them to have. And so it's called Orange because red is the color of love, the color that we kind of represent with the family. So it's a family strategy. And then yellow is the color of the church, kind of the light. Jesus is the light of the world. When you combine yellow and red, you get orange. And so we don't want to be just a church that's kind of taking care of the children of your families. We want us to be a church and family together in orange, having a strategy. We've been talking about this whole idea that what we want with this strategy is for people to follow Jesus, not just those from 0 through 18 years, but that all of us would follow Jesus. And we've been saying that why would we use a strategy? That just doesn't seem like that would go with the church. But, there's something important about having a strategy as a church for us to be following Jesus. We're not really creating anything new. We're just kind of taking the things that are already there, and then how do we get strategic with them? Again, we've been using the example since we've introduced this series, is that, do you know how much strategy goes into designing a Huggies diaper from our Kimberly Clark friends? It's all this strategy. So if they're putting that much strategy in designing a diaper, shouldn't we as a church have some strategy when it comes to helping people to follow Jesus, the children to follow Jesus, but all of us to follow Jesus? We've been talking about the idea that, whether you like the store or not, over the last few decades, Walmart has had a strategy so that now they're kind of the superstore across our nation. They've become they followed a strategy. They were very, very efficient in following that strategy, very focused in following a strategy over and over, and reinventing a strategy. How about this? The whole idea, when they go to make a movie, whether it's a bomb movie or whether it's a super hit movie and that, there's all this strategy that goes into making a movie. So we as a church, we want to follow this orange strategy so that, again, kind of as a church, as New Hope, as followers of Jesus, that we are following with hundreds of other churches, maybe thousands of churches, and hundreds of thousands of followers of Jesus to implement this strategy. So the first 3 weeks that we did in February was all around this theme of wonder for the infants through the 4 years old. We're not creating wonder. We're wanting them to experience wonder. And as we said, as we were thinking about that wonder, do we ever get too old to experience wonder? So the 3 big things that we're looking over and over, how can we help these children to realize the wonder of who this God is? And it's God made me, God loves me, and Jesus wants to be my friend forever. Jesus wants to be my friend forever. In that third message, you can go back and watch this online if you care to. We talked about how Jesus is just always with us. He's like a chair, and he never leaves the presence of that chair. Even when it doesn't look like anyone's in that chair, Jesus is there sitting beside us. Jesus wants to be our friend forever. He is faithful. He's not going to desert. So we want to have that kind of over those 0 through 4-year-olds. So even before an infant is talking, we're speaking over them. God made you. God loves you. Jesus wants to be your friend forever. Then when they start talking and they start singing, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. It just affirms the wonder that God made me. God loves me. Jesus wants to be my friend forever. And then last week we started this kind of second 3-week set of our kindergarten through 5th graders, our 5 through 12 years old. And we looked at this whole idea that kind of one of the big idea that we want them to discover over and over again. I can trust God no matter what. I can trust God no matter what. And we had a chair up here. And we just talked about what would it be like if we learned that just as we came in here this morning and just trusted our way to a chair. Some of you, if you're a first-time guest, you didn't check out the chair. You didn't make sure that would hold you weight. You just came in and sat down because you've learned over all of your years to trust a chair. What if we can learn how we could trust God like we trust a chair? Man, that would be amazing. So for our 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds, if we can help them along the way, I can trust God no matter what. I can trust God no matter what. I can trust God no matter what. There are all kinds of different experiences over those numbers of years that they learn over and over again. I can trust God no matter. Sometimes they're going to learn how to trust God when they failed to trust God. Sometimes that's how it happens. Today, we'll get back to it in a minute, but it's this whole idea of I need to make the wise choice. I need to make the wise choice. And wanting them to discover that. How does that play out? I need to make the wise choice. I need to make the wise choice. We'll get to that in a moment. Next week, we're going to be looking at this kind of big ideas. I should treat others the way I want to be treated. I should treat others the way I want to be treated. We want to discover why it is that you would want to live like that. I should treat others the way I want to be treated. Our last 3 weeks, we're going to be looking at this kind of 13 years old to 18 years old strategy, this orange strategy. Again, you get parent cues no matter whether your children are little, whether in that middle or whether that old. You get parent cues so that your family, as a family, you can kind of maybe follow a little bit of this orange strategy. Not you don't have to sit down for an hour and go over the lecture and that. Just maybe a moment here, a moment there. As you're moving along, as you're being a family. There are just these cues that will help you as families, as parents and that, to create some of these. So the 13 to 18-year-old, the big idea is just passion. Again, I'm going to keep saying it all the way along. Are we ever too old for passion? That's why we sing some of the songs that we sing around here, because we want to have something passionate that would happen in us. That's why we sing a song. I mean, I just love singing that last song, I Surrender. It's just a passion as we sing that song kind of in a quiet way, but in a beautiful way. I surrender. I want to live a life of surrender. I want to have a passion around that. So are we ever too old for passion? The 3 big ideas when it comes to passion is I'm created to pursue an authentic relationship with God. Over those years, 13 through 18, to help these young people, these young ladies, these young gentlemen, I'm created to pursue an authentic relationship with God. Because sometimes, those young people, they know that some people are pursuing God in a religious way. Sometimes they've seen some of the people, maybe some of us, that we see them in church on Sunday, but you end up having some kind of exposure to them during the week, and you realize that, man, I thought that guy was a Jesus. I thought that lady was a Jesus follower, but boy, that was a pretty mad face that she made at that person that just. So this idea of I'm created to pursue an authentic relationship with God, to have passion around that. The second big idea is I belong to Jesus and define who I am by what he says. I belong to Jesus and define who I am by what he says. Man, isn't that hard to do when you're 13 to 18, because there's a culture around them that's saying, here's how you define yourself. Listen to this song, listen to this song, go to this movie, go to that movie. Here's the way you're supposed to look. Here's the way you're supposed to dress. Here's the way you're supposed to do your hair. Here's the way your face is supposed to look. And what would it be? I belong to Jesus and define who I am by what he says. Again, there's always these 2 competing voices, the voice of this world, the voice of Jesus. Can we encourage, man, I tell you, as much as I've become a follower of Jesus, I probably could have used a strategy back in some of those years of my life to help me define more about how I define myself listening to the voice of Jesus than some of the other voices that were really loud and really strong and really creative and really just drawing me in. And then the third thing is I exist every day to demonstrate God's love to a broken world. So over all those years, this world's going to remain broken. I think you know that. As much as Jesus is in this world, as much as followers of Jesus is in this world, there's always going to be some brokenness about this world. But what would it be like to help some of those 13 to 18-year-olds demonstrate God's love to a broken world and how it can make a difference to a soul that matters? Probably not going to convert the whole world, but what if one little simple thing I do helps someone else to know Jesus, to follow Jesus? And when you help someone else to know Jesus and to follow Jesus, sometimes that strengthens you to keep knowing Jesus and following Jesus. So in the moments that I have remaining today, I want to go to this second strategy of discovery with these 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds, from these kindergartners through the 5th grade, with this idea: I need to make the wise choice. I need to make the wise choice. How can we discover? I need to make the wise choice. I need to make the wise choice. Last week we looked at this verse from Proverbs where it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll make your path straight. And this whole idea, I can trust God no matter what. The whole book of Proverbs, there's a lot of places in Proverbs where it sets up this idea that you can choose a wise thing or you can choose a foolish thing. So there's kind of this idea that there's this foolish wise. There's this battle that you're doing. Sometimes you do a foolish thing and you realize, oh, that was a foolish thing. And wisdom says, maybe you can learn from that and not do it. So this morning, we're going to look at this whole idea that how can I need to make the wise choice. How can I make a wise choice and not a foolish choice? I'm going to borrow very, very heavily from Pastor Andy Stanley, who the Orange Strategy kind of comes out of the church and the network of churches that he's been serving with for the last almost 20 years. And he's written a book around this whole idea, this strategy. I need to make the wise choice. The book is called Ask It. Ask It. And so if you're interested, if you're a reader at all, if you're not a reader, again, he always writes very short chapters, very good writer, engaging writer, uses a lot of wisdom, a lot of Bible passages. The subtext of this book, Ask It, is the question that answers just about everything. The question that answers just about everything. So he's been teaching this over the last 20-some years to the church, to this kind of network of churches. And so in January, February of 2014, he spent 6 weeks teaching about this question to ask, this question that answers almost everything. You can actually go to justastit.org. You can watch all 6 of those messages, even contained with that. You can get questions for like a small group. So if you're involved in a small group, if you'd like to get involved with a small group, this is some materials that you might consider a few months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now. Just ask it. It's going to kind of be out there on the internet forever and ever, or you can buy a DVD, but just askit.org. You can watch all 6 messages and again, go through it as a small group. The Bible passage that he uses comes from Ephesians chapter 5. And it's just some amazing verses. So it's not just a Old Testament, Proverbs deal, but the writer of Ephesians is going to kind of echo this idea of wise, foolish, wise, foolish, wise, foolish. So it reads like this: be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. So, there's that, are you going to be very careful how you live as wise, not as unwise, but as wise? Then it says, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Again, we've been establishing that because the days are evil. So make the most of every opportunity, the chances that come before you, the moments that come before you. You over and over again, it's going to, wise, foolish, wise, foolish. How am I going to do it? If I go foolish, that's kind of following the path of evil, and sometimes it just is almost a slippery slope down. But am I going to do the wise? It sometimes might take a little effort to go against the grain. And then it says therefore, kind of the conclusion, therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. The Lord's will is always for wisdom. Will you follow the Lord's way as he wants us to trust in him and acknowledge him and lean on him. Not on the way that makes me feel good, not on the way that, a lot of other people are going, but that would do something that would lean on him. So all that is then to ask this question, what's the wise thing to do? What's the wise thing to do? So let's read that question together. What's the wise thing to do? So that's the overarching question. What's the wise thing to do? But Pastor Stanley ends up spending a number of times just kind of teasing out that question. We're not going to have the time in the few minutes that I have remaining here. But he teases this question out and kind of puts three things around it. He phrases the question this way. In light of my past experience, what is the wise thing to do? Let's read that question together. In the light of my past experience, what is the wise thing to do? So whether you're 5 years old or 50 plus years old, we all have past experiences. We all start to learn, in light of my past experience, what is the wise thing to do? So again, just think about this. You're 5 to 12 years old, especially when you get to kind of that 11 and 12 years old, and you end up having a number of friends. And these friends, some of them, because, I don't know how it all works, but they end up watching a movie that is kind of R-rated. They end up watching a movie that has a lot of horror in it. And it's a real popular, and like your whole group of friends have watched this movie. Then you kind of know that it's probably not the wise thing to watch this movie. But what if you don't have anyone around you kind of speaking into you, I don't know if it would be the wise thing to watch this movie. What do you think? Again, sometimes we haven't done the wise thing and we went ahead and watched the movie. And we end up paying a price. If it was a horror movie, maybe we had some really, really bad dreams for a while. Or maybe we ended up seeing some image, and some of those images got kind of seared into our brains, and we end up with a lot of regret and just a lot of things that we end up working through. So in light of my past experiences, what's the wise thing to do? The second question then is phrased like this. In light of my current circumstances, what's the wise thing to do? So again, here we are today, in these moments, whether you're 5 to 12, whether you're beyond that, we still want, well, let's read this together. In light of my current experience, what's the wise thing to do? In the light of my current experience. Here I am today. I've got a load of debt. I know how I've gotten into that debt. It was by using a credit card, maybe foolishly. At the time, I had all kinds of reasons why and had it all kind of figured out and why, I convinced myself I could go ahead and do it. But now in my current experience, in my current circumstances, what's the wise thing to do? Do I go to Financial Peace University and learn how to get out of this debt and how not to use the credit card? Those kind of things. In light of my current circumstances, here's what I used to do. Here's what I used to do with alcohol. Here's what I used to do with women. Here's what I used to do at bars. Here's what I used to do with my computer. In light of my current circumstances, what's the wise thing to do? And the final question to kind of wrap this all together, I love this aspect of the question. Let's read this question together. In the light of my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? All of us have future hopes and dreams. I got future hopes and dreams. You have them. And that's a part of even why we call ourselves here New Hope. Because we have new hope, future hopes and dreams. In the light of my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? Again, if I've been doing some things in my past experiences and kind of my current, what's the future things to do in that? So the question all together, let's read that together. So here's the question, putting all three of these pieces together. So let's read this. In light of my past experience, current circumstances, future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing for me to do? In the first message that I was watching and reviewing and borrowing from, just want to give Pastor Andy the credit in that. He said this towards the end of the message. People don't plan to mess up their lives. None of us plan to mess up our lives. We don't plan to do foolish things. But then he says, but they don't plan to not mess up their lives. So sometimes we just kind of think, I can do whatever it is. Here's what everybody else is doing. Here's what all my friends are doing. You ever hear that? I used to use that. Well, everybody is doing it. I usually heard, well, if everybody was jumping off a cliff, would you too? Probably. I probably would. I don't know. Yeah. So we kind of hear that, but we know that's foolish. Well, we learned that it's foolish to not plan to mess up our lives. And none of us went into a first marriage thinking, oh boy, I hope. None of us went to the bar and thought, okay, none of us used the credit card and think, boy, I hope I can really get in a whole load of debt and it just feels like a weight crushing me. But again, this is the idea. People don't plan to mess up their lives. They don't plan to not mess up their lives. So imagine if we started to ask this question, not just our fifth graders, our kindergartners through fifth graders, but all of us. Because I don't ever think we really grow out of this question. In light of my past experience, current circumstance, future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing for me to do? So as a gathering of Jesus followers, just start asking it. We know that it's being asked, that it's being taught, that it's that we're trying to help our 5-year-olds through 12-year-olds how to learn how to not make some of the foolish experiences, so that maybe some of them won't have some of the regrets that some of us carry. That maybe some of our younger people, they won't have some of the tears that maybe we've had because we made a foolish choice. Maybe some of them won't have some of the pains that we've experienced because we weren't asking this question. So imagine always asking, let's read this together again. In light of my past experience, my current circumstances, future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing for me to do? Now, if there's something in you that kind of resists asking, again, this is from Pastor Stanley. I think it's just brilliant. You may not have your own best interest in mind. You just may not have your own best interest in mind. That you wouldn't want to wrestle with this question. Again, this isn't an easy question. This isn't an easy thing to go through. Again, probably as I've said, in light of my past experiences, some of you have gone, yeah. And there's still some pain, some regret from some of those past experiences. But the wise thing is that God has led us past those past experiences. And he wants to keep us on the other side of some of those past experiences. He wants to give us healing. He wants to give us hope. So now in the light of my current circumstances, and then in my future hopes and dreams, to follow this Jesus, to follow this God, to live in a way that's wise, and to know that there's others that are being kind of taught and encouraged and having experiences that I need to learn what is the wise thing to do. We have a God who does have our own best interest in mind. That's why he would want us as a church to kind of walk with so many other churches and so many other followers of Jesus using this kind of a question, this kind of a guide. In light of my past experiences, my current circumstances, my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing for me to do? What's the wise thing for me to do? We have a God, again, we're in this season of Lent, and it's all about following this Jesus who does the wise thing. He does the wise thing. He knows about the evil of this world. He knows about the evil that's in each one of our hearts. And he does the wise thing to serve us, that we would be able to follow him. So that we would follow him with wisdom, even when some of those really, really hard days come, that they're coming for all of us. That we'd follow him, because we would know that we can trust him no matter what. I need to make the wise choice. Next week we'll look at this next one, which is, I got to still review my notes here. I'm still trying to, I should treat others the way I want to be treated. Again, this Jesus puts before us, follow me. And there's so much wisdom to follow Jesus. And when we don't follow Jesus, boy, a lot of foolish things happen. Can we, as a church, as followers of Jesus, just realize that all of us are looking to follow this Jesus? One last time, let's read this question together. In light of my past experience, current circumstances, future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing for me to do? Ask it. There's a book out there. You can watch it online. Ask it. Ask it. And let's see what God does in us, through us, all around us, and way beyond us. Let's stand. We'll close with prayer, sing one more song, and we'll be on our way. So Jesus, we look to you. We're wanting to follow you. Thankful for the Orange strategy that has been strategically planned by so many other followers. And we as a church of New Hope, we're just kind of connecting in. We're joining in. We're going to do this together. We're going to do this together, not just together here in this church, but we're going to do it with lots of other. Maybe someday we're going to be traveling, going to be someplace, and we're going to have a conversation with someone, and they're going to say, oh, yeah, we do the Orange strategy in our church. And we go, oh, we do the Orange strategy too. And again, we're followers of Jesus, and we know that there is a wise thing that we can do. So Jesus, keep putting that in front of us and help us as a church just be able to work with our 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds to help them to make a wise choice. So there's less regrets, less tears, less pains, more Jesus. We ask it in your name. Amen.